sneaking about with flamethrowers. Pioneers, of course, being assault troops, besides just engineers, which, unlike American engineers, which were just engineering troops. And we see airborne sneaking away, taking this western victory point, giving them in fact control of all points. And we see Foes Grenadiers and Pioneers moving out, setting up for flanking assault on this machine gun emplacement. Quite good move, Mr. JawohlHerHauptman. A good Hauptmann, in fact. And we see a large force moving out again, and a Kampfkraft center is up, giving veterans one force infantry. Very good. Airborne with recoilless rifles, though, one passing right through. Armored cars perhaps not being so thickly armored, but there's not so much actually in it, so rounds could in fact pass through. And we see another hitting, though. Armored car crashing right into the remains of this factory, but only damaging it, but not the Puma itself. Firing away, Grenadiers a bit clumped up, though, and we see a lot of grenades going off. Oh dear. And we see huge casualties. One Grenadier cartwheeling through the air, and the airborne and riflemen retreating. That was a very good use of grenades. Again, pineapple grenades have been made more accurate and are a lot more damaging. And I'm a bit unsure why he didn't try at least to move away from it. And we see the second T-17 engaging, and we have the Foes Grenadiers and Pioneers moving in, flamethrowers and rifles scorching away. But the T-17 is on the move to try and deal with this attempt at wresting control from the eastern half of this industrial area. Grenade moving.
We're losing territory.
My goodness, he's moving about. Veterans, one rifleman with barely any health left and barely any men. He really needs to get those out of there. Oh dear. And of course, Grenadiers triumphing that they have annihilated American infantry, which is certainly not a bad move, but that was not the best move by the American, really. That was terrible. And we see infantry assault team and urban assault support, meaning stormtroopers and Stu-42s being prepared. T-17 doing a bit of hunting there. Staghound, the hellhound of the Americans, charging about, firing away with 37mm gun. And we see the battle phase has been reached, meaning the Wehrmacht is now ready for all-out warfare. Now, of course, question is, will they be using it? Certainly, but rather quick taking up and about, only using the Sturm Armory to get an armored car, in fact. Bit interesting. T-17 moving out, the armored car not really going to be helpful there. Grenadiers with Panzerschrecks could, but they seem to be moving in every other direction in where the T-17 is. But now they are redirecting, it seems, thankfully. Riflemen moving in from the north. Not entirely sure what is in that building, though. Engineers with flamethrowers, probably. Yes, there we go. In fact, let's go have a look at Mr. GI, who is now calling out support of the 82nd Airborne. T-17 forced to retreat. It's getting a lot of Panzerschreck fire. There we go. Another T-17 goes up in flames. A bit surprised this wreck hasn't been salvaged, though. American infantry getting suppressed. This is hanging around, not really moving in to support this anti-tank. I'm willing to get out. Grenade going off on these engineers, but they survive, taking a bit of damage to the anti-tank gun, though might not be so lucky. Riflemen moving in to support a bit. These Foes Grenadiers are trying to find their way at this building with MP40s. MP40s not really being the best weapon against garrison troops, certainly not at range. And we see a grenade going off right in the bunch of them, almost killing the entire team. And looks like this flamethrower might finish off the job. Yes, indeed, Foes Grenadiers are lost. Another grenade going off, killing the engineer right in there. And we see fresh airborne being dropped in, while further airborne and riflemen are moving in. A grenade going right off amidst the airborne, only doing a bit of damage. And now these grenadiers are going to be outgunned and outnumbered. Grenades now going on amongst them. Oh dear, a bit of damage. And what do we have? Stu-42 Sturmhaubitze 42. An upgraded variant of the Stug, which is meant for rather heavier infantry support, and provide some actual artillery to knock out any heavier positions and blow up buildings. It was usually used in a configuration with 3 Stugs and then a Stu-42 to assist, as the Stugs were sort of artillery units. A bit curious, in fact, yes, but it was the artillery branch that was apparently in the first place only willing to actually use them. Of course, everybody then later on saw them, and the artillery decided to keep them, which of course caused a bit of trouble between Guderian, who was the Panzer Inspector General of the Armored Forces, and of course the artillery, and nothing was ever actually really done about it because Der Führer had a sort of idea that competition between the different armed branches was actually good instead of, for example, a really wrong idea. There we go, Stu 42 heavy artillery, or heavier than the Stuk. And of course able to do quite a bit of damage if you could catch anything. Pioneers seizing territory, airborne moving in though. Ready to do a bit of damage with their carbines and recoilless rifles. Oh dear, Mr. Pioneers, get out of there. Recoilless rifles round flying about, not hitting a single thing though, much to the luck of the Pioneers. MG42 setting up for those airborne, yes, firing up, and might drop a grenade round onto these gunners. Will they or will they not? Oh dear, and awfully close to a mine, setting it off, killing one MG42 gunner. Stu 42 rounds landing amongst the airborne. Oh, the MG42 gunner did not survive this time around. Stu 42 firing away and getting right into the midst of all this, just getting knocked out by recoilless rifle fire. That was a really bad idea. Stu 42s are not really tanks, and just sending them into the midst of anti-armor infantry is generally what you consider a bad idea. And the Stu 42 caught fire. Airborne getting hit by Panzer tracks and forced to retreat. Riflemen also suffering. No medical station though. Again, no medic bunkers either. Again, I'd really recommend in general, if you're using a lot of infantry, get some medic stations, medic bunkers, or casualty clearing stations. It can really help in the longer run. And we see a grenade going into this building once more, and an engineer barely alive will really need to get out of there. Another thing that seems to be escaping this American is the use of cover, as he really have a tendency of letting his airborne and riflemen standing out in the midst of everything. Bit of engagement going on here. Riflemen forced to retreat. They do have veterancy 2, and we do have vets upgrade number 1 for the supply, which will certainly help with manpower, and in fact has a lot right there. And we see the T-17 once more on the prowl. Anti-tank are nearby, barely alive though. And these Grenadiers could easily clear it out in seconds, and looks like they might in fact. Or will the gun shield keep them safe on the move? And we do see these Grenadiers have picked up a recoilless rifle, firing away with that as well. Airborne joint moving in. Will they support the anti-tank gun or not? I'm not entirely sure. Looks like the anti-tank gun will barely get out of there. Just barely. Looks like the T-17 is trying to wreak a bit of havoc right here in the east. Airborne though continuing the fight against the Grenadiers of the 352nd. 4th Infantry Division seems to be caught in a bit of a mire, not really able to do any heavy losses. Opel Blitz going up in flames. Might the other one as well? Apparently not. Seems to have a bit of luck though. No, there we go. Opel Blitz number 2 goes up in smoke. Grenade flying above the airborne, and a Grenadier flies right above the parapet and into the pit of some sort there. Rifleman barely alive, pulling back as well. T-17 guarding the eastern point, but not really able to capture it since he's not armor company. He might want to consider getting something a bit heavier, perhaps calling in that supply drop and then using the HMGs and mortars would be of help. Then of course a medic station, but of course only time will determine. And now we are seeing a Panzer Command going up, and what will be coming out of it? A Panzer IV, Austrian Panther, or Knights Cross holders, we will have to see, but certainly a Panzer IV would be of great help, I think.
Paratroopers on point.
Very interesting. Very interesting, the 352nd holding out. Being able to call upon Stu 42s, no stormtroopers though.
Airborne, ready for duty.
And Pioneer sneaking about, looking good for the Americans, though they have managed to seize most of the map again. Though they are suffering rather heavy in the attrition department, not really reinforcing their riflemen or reinforcing them, or even getting a medic station to sort of keep the rate of losses down. And we see Knights Cross holders out with veterancy 1. Knights Cross holders being some rather tough infantry with assault rifles, and charging in there, cutting down one rifleman in seconds. Looks like the other two barely make it out of there, or will they? Nope. Riflemen were cut down by the Knights Cross holders, showing why they are wielders of the Knights Cross, being one of the highest orders, in fact, in the German army. Grenadiers moving in from above, firing a Panzer grenade right into the, rocket into the rear of the T-17, and Knights crossholders charging in there, but coming under heavy fire even as a T-17 joins in. Knights crossholders might want to consider getting out of there using assault, but only one is left, and he does get out of there. Airborne sitting up here in a nice defensive position. Recoilless shells flying to every side, and grenades and panzer rockets bombard them though. 2 airborne dead, 1 slightly popping out the window, being dropped up on one of his comrades, apparently not too heroically. And airborne looks like they might want to get over there, reinforcing on the field, which is one of the very few units that can actually do that. And T-17s moving in to actually support them, not actually infantry or heavy weapons, but just T-17s, despite the heavy presence of panzer and whatnot. And airborne getting cut down as they are dropping in by the Fußgrenadiers with the MP40s. Looks like another airborne team is down. Yes, indeed, those Grenadiers though might want to get out of there before they are lost. Goodness gracious, there we go. MP40 Fußgrenadiers though charging in, clearing out the anti-tank gun. And my goodness, what do we have here? A second Stu-42. Really calling upon all Stu-42 Sturmhaubitten that the 352nd Grenadier Division can apparently muster. And we see recoilless rifles and panzer littering in the ground. And Stu-42 moving in, taking fire from this anti-tank gun, which has been recruited by engineers, really heavily lacking in infantry or anything really. Airborne apparently moving about here and getting dropped. Only 2 airborne teams. Stu-42 moving up behind the anti-tank gun, clearing out 1 engineer. Anti-tank gun not turning about though. T-17s firing away, hitting the rear arm of the Stu-42 where they can actually do a bit of damage. Anti-tank gun cleared away. T-17 not much health left, and apparently decides to brave the howitzer shell, which didn't work out for it though. While such large shells are of course high explosive and not really meant for tanks, they can still do a bit of damage to any armored vehicle. So there you go, T-17 knocking out their intended pioneers. Further engineers moving in, and airborne moving in with their recoilless rifles. Might take a few shots at the rear. There we go, heavy damage. Engine is damaged in fact on the Stu-42. Desperately trying to get out of there. And German infantry braving the way. Oh dear, I've gotten another hiccup. Bother. Anti-tank gun being recruited again. I'm not too keen on this, using a 140 manpower team to actually recruit a gun. It's better to actually use, say, riflemen and then reinforce the rest of the team. You generally don't want to spend entire teams on recruiting guns. That's not very economical in the longer run. And he barely has anything left now. Only 1 no, he does have a second airborne team there. In fact, a T-17 and an anti-tank gun. He really needs to get some more infantry out there. Generally more of everything before the Germans hit him again with apparently further Knights crossholders. Really getting a lot of them. Engineers on the move as well.